Hello, I'm Grant Gamble, and welcome to Hyper-disambiguated Excel VBA. I know what you're thinking. Hyper what? What's he on about? Well, let me explain. I've been running Excel VBA courses for a long time, and I find that if someone does programming regularly, web programming, ASP.NET, whatever, then VBA falls into place and they learn it fairly easily. But those people who are mainly Excel people and who don't do much in the way of programming find it much harder to stay on top of VBA and how it all works. I've even found that people often have to be retrained if they haven't done programming for a long time. They start to forget even the very basics. So the idea of this course is to ensure that Excel users fully understand the VBA code that they're writing. And we use a number of techniques on this course to make sure that this happens. One of the key things we do on this course is to write the code in such a way that it becomes super clear what each line of code means. And this is what I mean by hyper-disambiguation. We don't just write the bare minimum to make sure that the code works. We deliberately try to make each line of code as clear and self-explanatory as possible. This often means that you end up writing longer lines of code than most VBA programmers. But the benefit is that it's much easier to see the function of each line of code in your macros. And this becomes particularly useful if VBA programming isn't necessarily something you do regularly. So what will you learn on the course? Well, the course will cover all of the basic elements that you typically work with when automating Excel. We'll start with Excel itself. This is referred to as the application object. We'll look at writing code which gets information from Excel, such as the version being used and whether the user is on a PC or a Mac. And we'll look at the correct way of changing a user's Excel settings when you need to, and then how to restore the original values so that you keep them happy. Then we'll move on to look at working with files and workbooks. Obviously, when a workbook is closed, it's just a file, and as soon as you open it, it becomes a workbook. So we'll learn how to create and delete files and folders, how to process all the files in a given folder, and then we'll talk about opening, creating, and deleting workbooks, how to check whether a workbook is open, and how to check whether a workbook exists at an expected location. Then we'll drill down into worksheets, creating them, deleting them, copying them, moving them. And we'll also discuss the most efficient ways of referring to worksheets, and also verifying if a worksheet exists before you try and do something with it. We'll also look at the contrast between worksheets and chart sheets. They've got quite a lot in common. They both have separate tabs within a workbook, and they're also part of what's called the Sheets collection. So we'll talk about when you should process them separately and when you should process them together. We'll also discuss the contrast between creating standalone chart sheets versus embedded chart sheets. And of course, we'll also get plenty of practice on working with cell ranges, homing in on specific data ranges, copying data ranges between worksheets, modifying the values in cells, and of course entering formulas in cells using VBA. I'll also make sure you get plenty of practice on code recognition. I think it's very important. The course comes with a code recognition template. You can paste your code into the template and then just go through line by line, making sure that you understand what each line of code is doing. So if you're looking for an Excel VBA course which doesn't just ask you to learn things parrot fashion, but gives you a chance to really own the code that you write and know exactly what it's doing, then Hyper-disambiguated Excel VBA programming is exactly the course you're looking for.